Hey, everybody, this is Brent Jeffers, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast with Eric and Jeff.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Unteed, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is Brent Jeffers, formerly of Stryper.
And he's also been a touring member, a keyboard tech, piano tuner. He does photography, production. He was also a stage manager, production manager. A little bit of everything for multiple artists, and probably too many to list. But most notably, he had a long stint with Journey, and he's worked with American Idol, Tim McGraw. We talked about Natalie Cole,
David Foster.
So we could go on, but really cool guy, and it was a great interview.
Let's get right to it.
All right, good night.
Good night. Brent, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Unteed.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Well, we're so excited to have you. Thank you for all the correspondence and your willingness to participate. We're so excited to have you tonight. Let's get right into it.
Sure.
So we have discussed together on the phone previously. You had been interviewed for a possible Stryper documentary. You were unsure how it was being funded or what the funding was going through to make it happen. Can you talk a little bit more about this possible upcoming Stryper documentary?
Sure. So it was probably less than a year ago, a film company called me up, said, hey, we're doing a documentary on Stryper, and a couple of you guys live there in the Nashville area. We're leaving Guido's house, and Michael Guido, and we want to come by and interview because you were on the Hell with the Devil. And I go, yeah, great. And they came over and they set up and did this little interview, told a couple stories, and then they left, and they said, yeah, we'll let you know. Well, I really didn't hear much after that, and I just let it go. I didn't know, what they were doing with it. And then just literally a few days ago, a couple friends of mine texted me and said, hey, we hear that Netflix is putting out a documentary of Stryper on The Hell with the Devil. And I go, wow, I didn't know that. And so I called Oz Fox, the guitar player, and I go, hey, man, I'm hearing these rumors about that documentary being on Netflix. And he goes, dude, no, that's false. He goes, yes, we are working on a documentary, and we have for the past couple of years, but no, we haven't put anything out yet. So it's fake. So either somebody's got something but as far as, I heard it from the horse's mouth, from Oz, and he said no. But I'm looking forward to seeing when they do come out with something, this documentary, because Tale of the Devil was a big one for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, just talking about documentaries, I haven't watched any recently, but Eric and I talk about them all the time because we love to watch documentaries. Is there one that you've seen recently that you can talk about?
I love Tim Burns' stuff. I love the historical stuff. Breaking with the Band with Bon Jovi was kind of cool. I kind of still keep, I love watching old documentaries.
Yeah.
And, I can't think of a lot offhand, but, PBS has a lot of stuff, and I see a lot of some great historical stuff. They did a thing on the Grammy Awards, and they had a thing on Natalie Cole, and I go, yeah, I was there, and it was kind of funny, and where I could say, yeah, I was there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this documentary on Stryper, because that was my very first tour, and I don't know if they're even going to have me in it, because back in the 80s, hard rock bands, when they had keyboard players, they were usually kind of off stage a lot of times, because they would normally just play on ballads, or sing backups. Unless you play guitar and play keys, normally you were kind of off to the side. So I don't know how much, if they include my interview or not, but I would love to see it, and I still stay in touch with those guys too. We're still friends.
Well, we're excited for whenever it comes out. So, you know, before we dive deep into your history into the music business, as of 2021, you work as a freelance video producer, editor, drone pilot, photographer, and the list goes on. Talk a bit more about all the hats that you wear in this portion of your career.
Well, when I went to college back in the 80s, I was wanting to get into film and video work. And so back in the 80s, I bought the first computer nonlinear editing system is what they called it. And I always kept it on the side. Well, I kept doing it, working on little projects here and there. Well, I ended up, Jonathan Kane of Journey, his wife called me if I could do a video on his life for his 60th birthday. And then so I did this whole video for a big birthday, and all the who's were there. And then a few years back, his wife, Paula, called me and said, hey, I'm throwing a big 70th birthday party for Jonathan. I would really love to do his life's video, life of his story. And we're going to be at the Ritz-Carlton, all these video screens. I mean, she put a lot of money into it. And I said, absolutely. So I ended up doing that. And then I just started doing more video projects, and I have an editing system at my house now. And then when she called me, she goes, I wanted to keep a secret to Jonathan about the surprise video, but I had to go to him, and he goes, hire Brent Jeffers. And so I did his video, and then his best friend passed away, who's a big songwriter here in Nashville, Kim Tribble. And he called me and goes, hey, can you do a video life story about him? And I go, yeah, absolutely. So I've always stayed in that. And then I got into droning, and I was doing some work for some real estate agents, flying over, their houses and stuff for that kind of thing. And so I'm kind of leaning towards that way, because I'm home and I get to work from home. And that's my other creative outlet. Music is a huge, huge thing. It was my dream. And then after the pandemic, things really slowed down. So I started getting back into my video stuff. And so that's what I've been kind of doing, is editing videos. I've done a couple little commercials, and I did things for when Clinton said he didn't have sexual relations. They literally came to my house. We have to get this out tonight. It's a video that you can buy online or actually off TV. And I did that whole thing. So my life has kind of had a lot of different chapters, off the road and then at home. And, I'm 63 now, and I had literally just had double hernia surgery a couple weeks ago. And the doctor kind of said, he goes, what do you do for a living? I go, well, I tour in the music industry, and a big part of it is me setting up pianos and tuning. And he goes, yeah, you may want to rethink that. So, but what's funny is, I kind of went, okay. And so I just kind of thought, God, is this your sign of you wanting to, for me to retire? And then literally about 3 weeks ago, a guy named Bill St. Moore, who's Bon Jovi's keyboard tech. He called me, and we're good friends. He called me, and he goes, Brent, what are you doing right now? And this was like 2 weeks ago. And I go, I'm not doing anything. I go, I'm just sitting at the computer. He goes, you want to go out with Shakira? Wow. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, they called me, and I can't do it. I'm with Bon Jovi. I go, yeah. And he told me the money, and it was silly. It was funny money. I was like, wow. And he asked me, he's got 50 shows booked. I go, yeah. I go, when do they want me to leave? And they go, can you fly out today? I went, what? And I go, what's going on? What's the circumstance? And then he said, yeah, well, Shakira's flying to Montreal to do her rehearsal and the show there, and then she's flying to South America. Unfortunately, her keyboard tech, who's from Britain, has, I guess, a criminal background. And Canada, they're real sticklers for if you have any kind of background. And so he couldn't get into the country. And so they wanted somebody to fly out today. And I said, oh my gosh. He goes, start packing your bags. They're going to call you probably within the hour to get you a flight booked. I said, okay. I go, is there any pianos involved? He goes, nope. I go, is there computers I need to know about? Nope. You're just taking care of the music director. I said, done. So I literally started packing my suitcase, packing my bag, and I get a call about an hour later, and it's Bill St. Moore calling me back and goes, hey, listen, Shakira really wanted everybody to come into Canada. So management threw a bunch of money at I don't know who, the government or the Border Patrol, thousands and thousands of dollars for him to be able to get into Canada, to be able to do this tour.
Oh, no.
So I just kind of looked at it. I've always looked at, God brings me every tour. I've never called for any tour. I've never sent on a resume. It's always been a call from nowhere. Every tour in my 35 years is always an unexpected phone call. And I'm sure a lot of guys out there who tour can say the same thing. You don't know where the next tour is coming. It's just word of mouth, So I look at it, if God wanted me on that tour, I would have gone. And I was ready. I had my passport, I was all good. And I look at it, if God still wants me to tour, then it will happen. But, I hate to say it, but I'm collecting Social Security, and my wife has a great job working for Jack FM radio. And so she's really into music. So I look at it, God, if you want me to do this, I'm open, I'm ready. I try to keep my chops up. I still play. I tune pianos around town. And, so I'm kind of ready if it's meant to be. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm kind of at a little crossroads, but after every tour, if you don't get the call at the end of a tour, you're always at a crossroad kind of saying, well, who's going to call me? And it's usually a friend from another tour who was on the same tour that you were on, who went on to do another tour. And I bet you 90% of the guys out there who tour like that's how it is word of mouth, who are freelance, like me.
Well, I guess it was just meant you to be a volunteer on the podcast instead.
Hey, man, I'm happy to do it. I always look at it anytime I talk to anybody about what I do. It's kind of like a lot of times I talk to younger people who want to get into doing what I'm doing. And they go, well, how did you get to work with Journey? And I just tell them, it's just like, if it's a dream, pursue it. If it's meant to be, don't expect to send out a resume and get the call. It's going to come out of nowhere, most likely, and I just use it as my platform now to inspire people, because how I got my first gig with Stryper, that was God. That was not me. If I was to tell the story, that came out of nowhere. Absolutely. And
sure.
my whole life has been that way. Anyway.
Sure. It made me think there while you were talking that don't listen to your doctor completely, because 63 is still semi kind of young. You got some time left.
I can do that, but when I told him I live pianos, and he goes, "Yeah, you just had a double hernia."
Well, that yes, yeah, you want to take a break from that, but But
anyway,
it made me think while you were talking about that, because we've talked to several artists that, I know this one didn't involve pianos, but we've talked to several artists where they'll get that call and they'll be like, hey, what you doing? Can you go to Europe on Saturday? And then they're like, they just jump on the plane and they're playing bass in the next week, or they're playing guitar or keyboards or whatever it is. But can you talk a little bit about that? That expectation to jump into another artist's songs or plays, is that something that would come naturally to you, or do you got to do some you got to sit down and do some 24-hour cram?
It's so funny. The last big crammer, I guess I'll call it, was about a dozen years ago. Journey was on a break, and I got a call from a friend. His name was Jay. He was Journey's old production manager. He calls me out of the blue. He goes, Brent, what are you doing? I go, nothing. He goes, you want to come work for Garfunkel? I go, what? I go, where are you? He goes, I'm in Iceland. I go, what? I go, what's going on? He goes, yeah, the keyboard tech has gone AWOL.
Oh.
He didn't show up for load in. We have no idea where he's at. I go, they do shows in Iceland, huh? And so I go, okay. I go, I got my passport. If it's meant to be, call me. And then he called me, yeah, they found him. He goes, we're going to finish the tour with him. But it's always like that. Every tour, after Stryper, when they took a break, I went to go work for Debbie Gibson. Talk about opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where the stage manager from Stryper lived in New York, and he was best buddies with the guy who worked on Debbie Gibson, and I got the call saying, hey, Debbie's not happy with her keyboard tech. Would you be willing? And long story short, that was my next gig. And every tour has been that way. It's like how I went to Natalie Cole, who I ended up having a decade with, working with her. A friend of mine who I worked in the studio called me and goes, hey, you want to come work for Natalie Cole? I go, yeah. I go, sure. I go, what do you need me? He goes, I'm quitting the tour today, and they're doing the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Up in L.A., or it was one of those Tonight shows. And I go, man, my truck's in the shop. I can't make it. So I couldn't make it. So the tour manager called me. He goes, hey, man, can we fly out to Canada the next day? I go, yeah. So it's funny how those phone calls literally come out of the blue. And I've gotten the phone calls where somebody will call me and go, hey, do you know somebody that can do this? For Donna Summer, my friend called me, hey, do you know somebody that can be a stage manager? I go, yeah, me. One of those things. And when I got to work with Faith Hill, they're out from Nashville, and my friend called me and goes, hey, do you know somebody that can run a computer and run this, that, and the other? And of course, you always say, yeah, me. End up working out, me moving to Nashville, working for Faith, and then working for Tim, and then that led to Journey. Anyway, but that's how in my story, in my life, it's always been that call that you're not expecting.
Very cool.
That is an exciting career with just not knowing when that phone rings who's on the other end.
Yeah, and what's funny was I remember I called my wife. I was out with Journey, and Journey was getting ready to go on a break. And one of my hero producers is a guy named David Foster, and his tour manager is a friend of mine. He goes, hey, man, you want to go out with David Foster? I went, are you kidding me? And my wife knows that that I'm a big fan of his. She goes, gosh, just when you think the ring can't get any higher, than Journey. I go, David Foster. So I went out to tour with him. We went to Asia and all over the place. And I go, I can't believe this. I go, this is not me doing this. This has got to be God just kind of telling me where to go. I'm just, show up and, try to do the right thing.
You have. So let's get into 1986. You began your professional musical career with Stryper. Can you give our listeners an insight to your voyage leading into Stryper?
So I was playing in this Christian band at the time. It was called Fusion, that led to Guardian. Okay. They went and got a record deal, but literally we were just our only gig was in the warehouse rehearsing. But we wanted a sound guy to come down and listen to us. And so this guy came down, and this is like 1985 or so. And he came in, he listened to us. We were progressive rock. And he goes, "You guys sound pretty good." He goes, "Have you ever heard of the band Stryper?" And we go, "No." He goes, "This is their demo." And he played us pretty much the Yellow and Black Attack. And our jaws just dropped. I went, holy moly. And so I became a fan. I went and saw them for the first time, a place called Santa Monica Civic. And the line was wrapped around the building. And so we stood in the back, my friend Eric Blair and another friend, and we were just blown away. It's like, this sounds like Styx on steroids, you know? And so after the show, we were standing outside, and I saw the bus drive off into the darkness. And I go, man, my dream would be one day to play in a band, Christian band like Stryper, and be on a bus like that. And literally, it was a year later that I was on that bus. And tell just a quick 30-second time version of this story. So my friend that was with me, he knew Michael Sweet from Stryper, and he got him to come play on this demo that I was doing for this friend of mine. And then he mentioned to my friend Eric that they were, looking for a keyboard player for the road. And he goes, "Man, you got to hire, this Brent Jeffers guy. You got to hire him because he's a Christian and this, that, and the other." And so they said, Michael and I said, "Tell Brent to learn these 2 songs. It was Together's One and First Love, and have him record it." So I went down to my church because I was the janitor too. And so I learned the songs to the note and recorded myself. And this Eric Blair, he took the cassette. He didn't tell them what it was. He goes, "Listen to this, guys," during the rehearsal. And Oz Fox goes, "How did you get those tracks?" And Eric goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "No, how'd you get those tracks of those songs?" And he goes, "Those aren't tracks. It's a guy named Brent Jeffers." They thought it was the album tracks that he somehow got. And so anyway, I went down and auditioned, and I was like, I was scared because these guys I was a fan of, And we went to the studio, and Madonna was doing True Blue in the next studio over at the time. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here. And so I ended up auditioning, and they said, "Yeah, we'll let you know." A month went by, didn't hear a thing. I thought I didn't get it. But then I was working in this warehouse. I get a call over the intercom. "There's a Janice Sweet that wants to talk to you." And I got interviewed. I ended up getting the job. And so that's how it all, and literally within a month, here's another little piece of the plot. I sold all my keyboard gear to go back to college. Yeah. So I had no gear. And so when they called me to do it, my mom, who's she's the music influence, she gave me her credit card. And she goes, "Go down to Guitar Center and get whatever you need to get whatever, and you'll just pay me back, but don't tell your dad." Yeah. So I ended up literally getting everything, and remember getting on that bus that I saw drive away like the year before or 6 months before. And I go, I can't believe I'm here. I remember going to the back lounge of the bus, falling on my knees, like in tears, going, "God, I can't believe this is happening to me." Yeah. And that's where it all kind of started, To hell with the devil. And, it wasn't like I was starting in a garage band. Stryper was just starting to break down the walls, and they were, To Hell with the Devil that was their big one. And I got in on that. And I was just like so honored. And that just, I ended up doing, 4 tours with them. And then what happened was the grunge scene started coming in. Yep. Around 88 or so, the grunge thing started coming, and the hair band thing started not dying, but just the popularity was going down, and the grunge era was coming in. So a lot of the big 80s bands were starting to do smaller gigs and smaller things, and so Stryper wasn't working for a while, and that's when I went to work for Debbie Gibson. And then from that led to Donna Summer, and then the list just kind of goes on.
It's a fantastic story.
Well, before we started the interview, we were talking briefly about 1990's Against the Law album. We recently, or within the last year, had Tom Werman on, the producer, as a guest. Can you talk a little bit about his interactions with working in the band on that album?
Oh, yeah. So that was exciting for me because it was my first Stryper record that I actually got to play keyboards on. And Tom Werman was on it. And here's the funny thing. They were trying to go for a more edgier sound, you know, because Michael is such a clear, high voice. And Tom Werman was kind of, guys, if you guys want to rock, we have to get this more edgier sound. And he would try different things. He even, gosh, he told Michael Sweet to smoke a cigarette before he does his vocal take to try to rough up his voice. And I don't smoke. He goes, no, smoke a cigarette. See if it roughs up your voice. I mean, they were trying wild things to try to make the album a little more rock, but he was great to work for. You know, it was the first major album that I actually got to play on. He's a good producer. You know, I believe he was kind of responsible for Boston way back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, after your time with Stryper, you worked as a keyboard tech, stage manager, piano tuner, production, and playback programmer for some of the biggest names in the music business. Can you give our listeners an insight to your multifaceted approach to the touring business?
Well, the whole touring business is you kind of have to learn many hats. It's like back in the 80s, you could get hired just to be a keyboard tech.
Yeah.
But when I went to work with Natalie, she was on a smaller scale. She was still doing her R&B. We were doing little rock clubs. So I had to learn to drive the truck, load the gear. I had to learn I was the all-in-all tech. I had to learn how to tune drums, guitars. So then I kind of became her stage manager / everything. And then when she released Unforgettable, that blew up. She won 7 Grammys. And then everything got more, you know, I was just the stage manager, you know, and then everybody, you know, they divided the jobs up. And so I kind of had to learn different hats, you know, to learn different things. And it was funny, I was out with George Benson, and his guitar tech of 25 years was a friend of mine. He goes, man, I'm going to leave George, man. I'm going to go work for, you know, WWE or whatever that wrestling thing was. Mm-hmm. He goes, you want to tune guitars for George? He goes, he has one guitar. That's it. He plugs into a tuner and a Fender Twin. That's it. I go, yeah, I can do that. So I ended up just doing that for a bit. And then we're in a cab going back to and the tour manager who hired me, the production manager comes in and he's huffing and puffing. He's upset. And he goes, you know what? I quit. I'm done. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Just so you know, good luck with that. And then Billy, the tour manager, taps me on the shoulder in front of the guy, goes, hey, Brent, you want to be production manager? I go, yeah. And he was my next door neighbor at the time. I go, yeah. He goes, I'll give you what you need to know. I go, yeah. And the guy who said he quit kind of went, oh. And so that's how things lead to other things. You kind of have to learn a lot of different things, because if you pigeonhole yourself into one thing, you either have to go work for like a lighting company or an audio company or get your name known for just doing one thing. But for me, I kind of had to learn, you know, back then, MIDI was kind of new to the keyboard world. So I had to learn that whole science of MIDI and then going to computers. And I just was so hungry because I was in my 20s back then. And I just wanted to learn everything that I could. And then I started to see that if I learned other things, that I could spread myself out and then possibly get other tours. And so when other tours came other jobs. And then my first time production managing was actually for Alan Parsons, the Alan Parsons project. I came on as a stage manager, and he took a liking to me. He goes, listen, man, you should be my production manager. I see what you do. And that's how my life is led, is just by learning as you're going. And one thing I can tell people out there, and everybody else will say this that works in the business, you never say no, you can't. There were times where when I was going out with Debbie Gibson, they asked me if I knew this certain Casio keyboard, this other thing. And I said, yeah. And literally I was on the flight going out to New York, and I'm reading the owner's manual. Literally.
Yeah.
You know, and because a majority of the gig is what you know and how good you're at it, but there's another big part of it is your personality, how well you work with the artists. And if you read my resume, I've worked with a lot of people because I get to know them. I get to know what they want, what they like. And I could tell you stories of all these different artists, especially you mentioned Colors of Christmas, where every year it's 4 different artists. It's like a box of chocolates, man. Every year it's 4 different artists. And so if you look at the list from Michael McDonald, Natalie Cole, James Ingram, Sheeta Easton, Christopher Cross, Roberta Flack, I mean, the list goes on because every year it changes. And with that, I got to know the personalities of these artists, and I learned what makes them tick. So I want to be on their good side, you know. And when I work with David Foster, everybody says, "Oh, he's a handful. He can be tough." And I go, "Oh, well, I met him on Natalie's record. He seemed pretty nice." But they go, "Man, he can be a piece of work." I go, "Okay." I went on tour. He totally was nice to me, and I got to know him. I knew where his little readers had to be. I would do his music before the show. And it's like, that's what he wants. And as long as you give the artists what they want, you know, and you can handle that, then you're on their good side. And that's a lot of the gig, is being able to work with the personalities that you're working for.
Yeah. You know, you kind of alluded to earlier, like background singers or the keyboardist or whatever, sometimes in some bands were put back in the shadow or put back in the back.
Sure.
You know, in some bands they're not, they're recognized properly. But can you talk a little bit about that, you know, that experience of working with, you know, because we've talked to some artists who, you know, they're like, "Hey, I'm just happy I'm getting to play these songs and make this guy look good." You know, can you just talk a little bit about that camaraderie of the band itself that's supporting the major act?
Yeah. Well, you know, with Stryper, I remember telling the guys, you can put me in the back of the semi-truck, man. I just want to play, to play for you guys, you know. And then later on, you know, the hairband thing kind of, when it died down a little bit, and then when Stryper started doing their reunion tours, and there's some videos out there when we played Puerto Rico, Stryper decided to put me on stage because they didn't want people to think that they were playing to tracks or playing to a tape. So when All of Me or the ballads would come up, they would see a keyboard player on stage. And so that way it kind of looked like, oh, there's a guy on stage playing. You know, they're not playing, because during that era, there's a lot of artists playing to tracks. But they wanted to show, no, you know, we do have a keyboard player. It's funny because way back in the day when I play off stage, Michael Sweet used to introduce the band, but he wouldn't introduce me. He would just introduce the band. Well, I had the sampler, and I sampled the line from The Wizard of Oz, where it was, "Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain."
Yeah.
And so after Michael introduced the band, and they were getting ready to start the next song, I played that sample, and it comes through the PA. "Pay no attention." And Michael would drop his head and kind of laugh. He goes, "Oh, yeah, we have a keyboard player."
That's awesome. That is fantastic.
Let's go from 2002 to 2017, 15 years.
Yeah.
You worked for Journey with many different responsibilities. Can you tell us a bit more about your time in the Journey camp?
Yeah, gosh, it's funny. When I got the call, well, here's the thing. I got the call to go work for Journey. I was finishing up to McGraw, and then Journey people called me back and saying, "Listen, the keyboard tech's going to stay on," because they were going to hire me or bring me out to be interviewed. And they said, "Listen, the keyboard tech's going to stay on a little bit longer because he found out that they're going to Hawaii." And I said, "That's okay." I go, "Just keep me in mind." He goes, "Listen, can we throw you this American Idol bone? American Idol is now going to become a TV show, a tour in the U.S. And can you do that in the meantime until this guy retires?" And I go, yeah, absolutely. So I was on the American Idol tour, and Journey was on their tour. And then I get a call from the Journey people saying, "Hey, listen, we have this one-off, this big major computer, Oracle, and the keyboard tech decided that he wasn't going to show up." He goes, we see that you have a day off on the American Idol between Colorado and L.A. Can we fly you to San Francisco to just jump in and help take care of Jonathan Cain? I go, yeah. I go, I need to call my roommate to get my piano tuning stuff sent out because I wasn't tuning pianos. And so they flew my roommate sent my piano tuning stuff. And so that was my first, I flew out to do the Swan off. And I remember meeting Jonathan for the first time, and we were in catering. And first question he asks me, he goes, are you Mac or PC? And I go, oh boy. I go, I'm a Mac guy. He goes, okay, good answer. So this is kind of a funny story. So I'm coming in for this one day only, and my tuning stuff shows up, and the tuner's broken. It showed up and it broke. So now I have to tune by ear. It's like, oh my gosh, I haven't tuned by ear in a long time. So I was tuning the piano by ear during the dark stage, and Neil Sean comes out, which he likes to do, and he just starts ripping it up through the PA. And he's niddling and just ripping it up by himself, and I can't hear what I'm doing. So I put my head down. I go, this is not going to work. I'm not going to get this gig. And so then the lighting director came over to me. He goes, dude, what's wrong? Is everything okay? I go, man, I'll be honest. I'm trying to tune the piano here, and I can't with Neil out there. And he yells to Neil, hey, Neil! Neil would stop. Yeah, the piano tuner's trying to tune the piano. Cut it. And I go, no. Please, don't say anything. And Neil put his head down and walked off. I go, boy, I probably blew that one.
Yeah, I'd be thinking
literally.
the same thing.
And I thought, oh gosh, I just pissed off the head guy. The first day. It wasn't even the first day. It was a fill-in thing. And then, so finally Jonathan Cain came out for sound check, and I'm nervous. It's my first time. And he starts playing, and his only one line was he turned around to me, he goes, good work, doctor. And I felt like, all right, I'm in. And so after the American Idol tour, Journey people called me, and they go, yeah, can you come out to Tunica, which is just a few hours from my home in Nashville. Jonathan wants to talk to you again, and, about coming on tour. So I was so excited. I got my Durango, and I was flying down. It was a straight shot down the freeway, and I got pulled over by a cop. He goes, you were going over 100 miles an hour. He goes, I could pull you in right now for reckless driving. And I went to the cop. I go, I'm so sorry. And I told him the story. I go, I'm just this excited guy. I'm going down to interview to work with Journey. He went kind of, raised his eyebrows. He goes, I'm just going to give you a ticket for going 80. I went, phew, and he let me go.
Fantastic.
So anyway, that's how I end up getting on with Journey. Jonathan Cain interviewed me, and then we just hit it off, because they were looking for a piano tuner and a keyboard tech. And there are guys that can do one or the other, but there are not a lot of guys who do both. And I figured I got to learn both of them. And so on Natalie Cole tour, I learned how to tune the piano. And so that gave me a little more, let me be a little more valuable, because I can do both. And so that's how I got other tours, with Roberta Flack, Melissa Manchester, David Foster. And so because I could do both of those things, they didn't have to hire two people. They could just hire the one guy. So anyway, that's that story.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, so on we were talking a little bit about Christmas on Facebook recently, and I don't know. It might have been the last winter. You had posted a video of Oh Holy Night with you and Jim Steed, and
oh my gosh!
And you talked. I watched the whole thing. It was really cool. Can you talk a little bit about the creation of that collaboration?
Oh, sure. So Jim Steed was actually in my first band that I was in when our family moved to California. I was like 18, just out of high school, and we moved in this new housing development, and I decided to go for a walk down the street. I hear this band playing in this garage, and I banged on the door, And they thought it was the cops. And they raised the door, and I meet these guys, and they go, yeah, we're a band called Tempest, and, but we're looking for a keyboard player. And I go, hey, I got a keyboard. So I end up hooking up with this little garage band. Well, Jim Steed, the guitar player, really talented guy. Anyway, he moved away, and we hadn't connected in like 37 years. And he found out I was through Facebook that I was working with Journey. So he came down to see Journey, and he goes, man, do you want to get back together and do a song? And I go, yeah. And it was like in the fall. He goes, dude, let's do a Christmas song. I go, okay. He goes, I've always wanted to do Oh Holy Night. I go, cool. So it was trying to think what year it was. It was a few years back, but he lived in Baltimore and I lived in Nashville. And I go, let's just use GarageBand. I'll lay my tracks to click. I'll send it you, email it to you. You put your 2 bits in and send it back, and I'll mix it. And so that's how, so the shots of him with the divided screen is him in Baltimore, outside of Baltimore, and then the other one is me in my house in Nashville. So, and then we've been friends ever since, and we're looking to do some more work together.
Oh, so cool. From 1993 to 2008, you were the stage manager in the piano. In what capacity for the Colors of Christmas? Were you the pianist for that tour, or were you?
No. So a real quick story on the Colors of Christmas. The producer of that show, he designed the whole thing for Natalie Cole, where she sang with her father on video. And it was between this guy named Stig Egdren, who designed this whole thing, because David Foster, the producer, came up with this concept of Natalie Cole singing with her father on a video screen. So back when I was with Natalie, it was my job to set all this projection stuff up and a click to the conductor. So I got to know the producer guy. Well, he came back to me a few years later, said, hey, listen, I see how much Natalie Cole likes you and what you do, because I could use someone like you. I'm putting together the show called Colors of Christmas, and it's going to involve 4 different artists. And I need someone that can kind of run the stage, but also have a personality that can work with these different artists. And he goes, female artists can be kind of tough. I go, you know what? I've worked with Donna, I've worked with Debbie, Dawn Summer, I've worked with Natalie, I can do this. So he hired me, and I ended up doing 13 Christmas tours with him. And that's what led to that. And that opportunity, just like I mentioned, every 4 years, he brings in kind of artists that weren't doing hits, but had big hits. Like I mentioned, from Melissa Manchester, Christopher Cross, Michael McDonald, Roberta Flack, Peebo Bryson. And so I had this era of, like, in between my Journey and Natalie Cole gigs, that I got to do this Christmas tour, because nobody was really touring during the Christmas time. So from Thanksgiving to Christmas Eve, I got this Christmas gig. I wore my butt out because it was crazy. He booked like 24 shows in 27 days. And so it was all flight dates. And so, luckily TSA wasn't as tough as they are now, but it was all crazy, but it made me better at working with artists and working with personalities. And so I still stay in touch with, some of these people, but that Christmas tour has kind of died down, and they only do a couple shows at Christmas time now. So they really don't need someone like me on it. I think his daughters actually got into it, but it was nice, working with Michael McDonald. He's one of my favorites, and he has some great stories, and Sheena Easton was always a pistol, and, my wife was reminding me of a funny story, just real quick, and I'll be quick. You can edit this out, but it's kind of funny. We were playing Las Vegas, and I can't remember the gig, my Caesar's Palace, one of those places, and the Colors of Christmas is playing. And we're getting ready to start the show, and the producer shows up, because this is a big show for them, being in Vegas for the first time. And Stig came to me, the producer says, listen, Roberta will not come out of her dressing room until they change the marquee, because she's 4th on the list. She wants to be first on the list. And he said they can't get anybody out there to change the marquee. And so I go, oh my gosh. And so this producer's freaking out. He went out, made an announcement that there's a delay in the show, and people started booing. So I went back to the dressing room, and Roberta liked me, and I would flirt with her. And I go, Roberta, listen, man, you need to come out, man. The show depends on you. She goes, yeah, but why am I fourth on the marquee? I won't come out till they change it. I go, Roberta, the show depends on you. I need you. I go, please, will you do it for me? So then I pull out my wallet and I slide $100 bill underneath the doorway. All of a sudden, she sucks it up. And all of a sudden she opens the door. She goes, I'll come out for you. And she put the $100 bill in her bra. And she came out. And then the producer guy came to me and goes, how did you get her to come out of her dressing room? I go, you owe me $100.
Well,
that's amazing.
Brent, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to cover that we didn't cover tonight? No,
I mean, it's funny. I know we're out of time. I've got so many stories, you know, being on the road for, you know, almost 35 years, you're bound to gain some funny stories. You know, if I could, one story I haven't shared or talked about much, but it was a good chapter with Linda Ronstadt. So she was going to come out and do this symphony orchestra thing. And this was 1993 when in-ear monitors were just coming out. So they were trying to turn her on to wearing these in-ear monitors because they're brand new. And she's used to having floor wedges. So she comes out and she puts these in-ear monitors and she goes, I don't like the way these sound. I can't hear the audience. And she was kind of finicking around and she looked over at the monitor guy and he's wearing Sony V6 headphones, the big old headphones. And she goes, hey, Connie, what are you wearing? And he goes, I'm wearing these Sony V6 headphones. I need to. And she put them on. She goes, I like the way those sound. And so next thing you know, I'm on the other side of the stage. She comes walking out at the top of the show with the full symphony with Marvin Hamlish conducting. She's wearing this white gown. And she's wearing these big, giant Sony headphones. She looks just like Princess Leia.
Yeah.
She looked just like Princess Leia. And the tour manager was running the teleprompter, and he goes, what the heck? And she did the whole show wearing these huge headphones. And everyone was going, doesn't she look just like Princess Leia? And that was the first and last time that she did that. Anyway, I'll let you go. I've got 100 stories I can share with you guys, but I hope that I was able to, you know, give you a little something.
Well, you absolutely did. And,
this was a lot of fun.
And this would be perfect for us to do, you know, maybe in a few months, maybe to do a Brent Jeffers part 2. What do you think?
I would love to. I got some great Tim McGraw stories where we used to nab, what's it called, we nab your balls and stuff. I got tons of stories. So if ever down the road you want to talk to me again, I love sharing my stories. My wife has heard them 100 times. You know.
Well, then we're definitely going to make it happen. Well, this is how things are going to work out. We're about a week out before within the week, Jeff will have this all edited and get all of my verbal boogers out of it, and we'll get it all cleaned up, and he makes this sound like $1 million. Well,
I love it because you can tell you're excited. And
it was an honor. I'm real curious. How did you find me or get my name?
Well, you know, Brent, the internet is a wonderful thing. You just start going down a rabbit hole of bands and who played on what albums, and that's what we try to do. Is we try to strive for, you know, artists that were involved with whatever we possibly can, because they have stories too. It's not always about, you know, the main person. It's about the people that were also the supporting cast, and we want to hear their stories too. So, and the biggest thing for us, and Jeff will vouch for this one, is that we take pride on being a non-genre based rock and roll podcast where we sprinkle in, you know, country and any other genre. Yeah. And it keeps it fresh for us, our listeners, and it's a lot of fun, I think, for everybody involved.
And I agree. I mean, I had the honor of not just being pigeonholed into rock. I went to work for country, R&B, jazz, Alan Parsons. I mean, luckily, it's like a buffet of artists. I've been really blessed.
Yes.
And if I was to stay in hard rock my whole life, I'd be deaf.
For sure. Absolutely, for sure. Thank you so much, Brent.
Thank you.
It was an honor to have you on.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so just plan on getting by this weekend, and then share it to any socials that you have. We're going to share it to all of our social medias, and like I said, and it'll be all good. Sound good?
Well, thank you, Eric and Jeff.
Yeah.
And I look forward to hearing it, man.
All right.
It was nice to meet you guys and work with you.
Absolutely. So I'll talk to you this weekend. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Good evening. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Everybody hides at home inside their nest of snakes. Everybody grinds the stone and makes their own mistakes. Hide in the headlights, fight the grip of fear. You can make your dreams come true, but you just can't do it here. Everybody eyes the gun and screams inside their head. Everybody bites their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey! Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out